All right, I have 101, so we will go ahead and get started with our presentation for today. So first of all, let me say welcome everyone to the Oklahoma Learning Innovation Summit 2019. We are so excited to be starting up today with a wonderful presentation by Ken Parker. This is the, I guess, third time that we've done the Learning Innovation Summit. So it's always a wonderful experience. We're so happy to be able to offer it to you at no cost. And this was all put together by a lot of hard work by the Council on Online Learning Excellence, which Ken had a big hand in forming. So we're especially excited that he's part of this today. So without further ado, I would like to introduce today's presenter, Ken Parker. Ken is the co-founder and CEO of Next Thought. And I would also just like to let you know he has been working with Oklahoma higher education as well as the state regents, especially the state regents online task force. He's been really instrumental in moving a lot of the work forward that the state regents have been doing over the past several years. So he is an old friend of Oklahoma higher education, especially in the online learning space. So we're really excited to have him here with us today to talk about extended reality. So Ken, I will turn it over to you.
All right, great. Hello, everyone. Thanks, Kyle. It's a pleasure to be with you here today, and it's a topic that I am very excited about and excited to share with you today. And it's kind of generically starting to be called XR, extended reality. And it's a powerful new way of creating experiences for people that I see enormous potential in education. So here's the agenda that we hope to cover in the next approximately 45 minutes, and then I want to leave time at the end if there are questions. But if you have a question along the way, please feel free to ask it while it's relevant and fresh on your mind. There's a Q&A panel that you can enter the question, and either Kyle or I will spot it and figure out the best time to respond to it. So here's our agenda. I want to talk about what is this extended reality stuff. It's commonly referred to by three different names: virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. And again, that is increasingly starting to be called by the generic term XR, extended reality. So the first point on the agenda is to try to answer the question, what is it and how does it work? The second question I want to answer is, so who cares? Who's doing stuff in this area? Who's paying for it? Who is investing in a big way in it? Because those will be signals that we can use to determine how real is this, how near is it, and how ready for prime time is it. And then the third topic will be the classic sales question, also the classic andragogy question that adults always want to know, and that is, what's in it for me? And so in this section, we'll try to make it a little more practical about what can you do with this XR technology? And I hope to, in particular, share a few ideas about education and how we might employ this powerful new technology in the service of our life's mission, which is to help educate people. So that's the audacious agenda. Let's move on. So what is it? If there's one word, I think, that captures the essence of XR technology, it is presence. And in this case, by presence, we just mean it's the sensation of being there, whether it's you being somewhere else or a virtual it being present in your current reality. And so that one word kind of captures the essence of it. And the way we deliver that sensation is through some, maybe all of the five senses, sight and sound being the most obvious. So the sight, obviously the visual input that our eyes receive, the sound, the spatial audio that our ears receive. We're getting some haptic devices. There's the gloves, there's some different garments or devices that will give some haptic or touch feedback. That's a little bit more rudimentary. And then smell and taste, well, those are further out still. I guess you can experience a hint of what that's like if you go to one of the Disney 4D rides. And they blow smells at you. They'll have wind moving around. And so there are different ways that we basically fool our senses to create this presence. And we do that even if you or it are not present. So that's kind of the one-word definition. So how do we do this? Name that movie. That's, of course, the classic from a couple of decades ago of The Matrix, where they would insert the neural probe into the port in the back of their heads. And that's the way that it basically fed, it would live stream all of the sensory data direct to the brain. Well, that doesn't exist yet. But having said that, there's a lot of exciting research going on with BCI, brain-computer interfaces and direct brain connections, but it's not quite to the matrix level yet. And so what we'll do is we'll pick out some of the senses and fool them. This is a classic experiment that's been done for several years, and I'll show you a video of this in a second, but it's called Walk the Plank. And the reason it has been so interesting is because of how immersive this is for delivering the sensation of being present somewhere. And in this case, you walk into the room, you see the board or the plank laying on the carpet, and you know that it's 3/4 of an inch off the ground. However, when you put on the earphones and the VR headset, this is what you see. And you hear elevator, you ride up an elevator, the doors open, and you hear a ding, and suddenly you're looking out over a 40-story view into the abyss. And in this case, you're trying to rescue a kitten off the end of a plank. And so the reason this is an interesting experiment is because you walk in, there's no trick. You know that that the board, that plank, is 3/4 of an inch off the ground. You know there's no chance you're going to fall and get hurt. And yet, the immersive power of virtual reality tells the more primitive parts of your brain, you are at risk of death. And so you should be terrified, you should be very careful because you're in a life-threatening situation. And so this is what's special and unique about VR technology, is it bypasses a lot of the cognitive filters that our brain normally puts in place. Like we look at a 2D screen or even an IMAX screen, and we know that it's not real, it's 2D, it's an artificial representation. And yet when you step onto this plank, your brain is alerting you that no, this is dangerous. So here's the fun little video showing some of the test subjects in Japan where they ran this particular experiment. So you get a sense from their reactions just how immersive and terrifying this is. And then we did this at our Christmas party at Next Thought in December. And we actually had 3 of the adults that when the elevator doors dinged open and they took a glimpse over the edge, they whipped off the headsets and said, that's good, I get it. No, I believe you. That's really immersive, Ken. That's so fun. I'm done. But it's again, that's what's different about this XR technology versus any other form of media or communication technology that we've developed. And it's one of the reasons why it's a big deal. And education should be exploring how do we harness this immersive experiential power that this new technology offers. So as I mentioned earlier, there's currently 3 modes of these extended realities that exist. And this is how we today create presence. And so the first one is virtual reality, then augmented, and then mixed. So let's just dive in. Virtual reality, this is the state of the art at this instant for high-end consumer-grade virtual reality. And each of these headsets are tethered. And so when we say virtual reality or VR, the differentiator there is that you can only see virtual. There's no physical. And so the front of these things are all just solid plastic because the only thing your eyes receive from input from are 2 little LCD monitors that are in front of magnifying lenses in front of each eye. And so the virtual is all that you see. And the other thing that makes these the most powerful right now is the fact that the processing is not done in the headset. The processing is done in a powerful PC. And it could be a laptop, it could be a desktop like this, but it's some gaming class of a PC because you need a great big beefy graphics card. This doesn't run on Apple devices right now because Apple doesn't allow third-party graphics cards as are required. And so it takes a PC, Windows 10 usually, and then the headset. And so one of the benefits of this higher end model is that you have 6 degrees of freedom. And it sounds like a complicated concept, it's trivial. 6 degrees of freedom just means that the system knows not only which way your head is oriented, so it could be that your head is looking from left to right, it could be your head is moving up and down, or it could be that your head is twisting side to side, and those are the first 3 degrees of freedom. And so the headset knows if you have moved your head in any of those ways, or you have rotated your head in any of those ways. So that's the first 3 degrees of freedom. And then the next 3 degrees of freedom just have to do with, are you moving within the room, wherever you're standing? And so you can walk forward and backward, you can walk side to side, or you can bend down or stand up tall, and that's your 6 degrees of freedom. And so these tethered headsets are able to recognize where you are, how your head is oriented, and the display just updates accordingly. And so the cost on these things for the headset is anywhere from $300 for the PlayStation VR to about $350 for the Rift. And Oculus has a new version of this that's just coming out. And then the HTC Vive, that one has a base model around $400 and then a nice model around $800. But you have to add in another $1,000 or $2,000 PC that's a fire breather PC that will have enough processing power. And so that is a tethered VR system, and it's kind of for consumer grade stuff. This is kind of the top of the top of the food chain at the moment. It's a rapidly evolving food chain, but that's what that's kind of the three main players at the moment. And here are the components, what they look like. So you've got this is the Vive. So you have the headset with the head strap. You see the two the earphones that will clip down over your ears. Then you have the two controllers, and these beacons here are used in a configuration of some sort where they are fixed. Here's one where it's a wall mount. I keep mine, I have an Oculus Rift, and mine I put on the desktop. So I have, for instance, one of my little beacons is sitting on a stand here. The other is sitting on a stand here equivalent. And the beacons, as this little graphic shows, the beacons connect with your two controllers and your headset. And so that's how the system knows where you are, and that's how the system measures all 6 degrees of freedom, because it's got these little infrared beacons that are broadcasting invisible light signals. The sensors on these devices pick it up, and then the computer processes it and says, okay, I know exactly where you are and how your controllers in your hands, how those are located. And so just to take it a step further in terms of how does it work, here's what an HTC Vive looks like if you tear it down, courtesy of the ufixit.com, I think it's their website, that tears stuff down so you can see the components. But what makes it work? It's really just these two components here. You have two little monitors. That's what this little square piece is. That's a little LCD monitor. And then you have the lens that's connected to it, that's what you look through. And that's what magnifies it so that it fills your field of view, even though it's only a couple of inches across. And so you got two of those. And then you have, for the spatial sound, you just have two earphones. All of the processing, the audio processing that makes the sound appear to be coming from a certain place in your spatial environment, all of that processing takes place on the computer, in this case, off headset. But the rest of this stuff is all just driven to feedback position information and essentially support the eyes and the ears, these two little devices. That's what makes the experience work. And so what is it like? This is a fun little example. It's the most popular game right now. I know a group that they deliver about 60 million minutes per month at video arcades all around the world. And this is still the #1 game at the moment. It's called Beat Saber. And it's kind of a mix between Guitar Hero, Dance Dance Revolution, the Jedi lightsaber, and it's music and lightsabers. So who's not going to love that? But the fun thing is how immersive it is. And so watch this guy as he's playing it. We see, they mashed it together so that we see kind of what he's seeing. It's two-dimensional, but it'll give you a sense of how immersive it is. And watch how when some of the barriers come, he has to duck down in order to avoid being plowed over by the big block that's coming toward him, a great big barrier. And so you see a different level of immersion for video games than anything you normally see in a video game experience. So anyway, you see how he's dodging and ducking and weaving and slicing. And the trick with this game is you have to slice the block again, it's a 3D block coming at you in space. You have to slice it in the direction of the arrow. So he's got to chop down on this one with his red saber, and he's got to chop up on this one with his blue saber, the one in his right hand. And so it makes for a very immersive game. And the game designers are going wild with this. They're creating all sorts, imagining all sorts of new experiences because it's so immersive and it's so visceral in terms of how you exist and how you play the game. So that's tethered headsets. That's what they look like. That's a glimpse of what it might look like while playing it. For those of you that have not experienced VR, please go find your nearest tech nerd at your university or whatever and say, put me in a headset, I want to try it. The one truism that I have discovered is that I don't care how much you describe it, I don't care how many examples you see, until you've worn a headset, you don't really understand it. You don't see what it, you don't get it in terms of what it's like. So I'll put in a plug now, but hopefully you'll be inspired to go try it out somewhere with one of your friends that has access to one of these headsets. So that's tethered. The next stage of the evolution is untethered. It's still virtual reality. This is the Oculus Quest. It's coming sometime in the next month or so. It's the successor to the low-end Oculus Go, which is a $200 self-contained headset. This one is also self-contained. It will be, again, totally standalone, no wires. It's not as powerful as the Oculus Rift, its big sister, but it's the benefit. There is no other cost. It's going to be $400. It'll come with two hand controllers and then the headset. And this one, for the first time ever, is 6 degrees of freedom, and it does not have any beacons. And so that's a big deal because setting the beacons up and you got to calibrate them, and it's a 5 to 10 minute hassle. Even if you get some experience with it, it's still 5 to 10 minutes. This one, they use what's called inside-out tracking. And so the same way that the human visual system, we're able to determine where we are in space and what the nature of our environment is. We're able to determine that through our own models that we create. And we're able to check our orientation and all of that. We're able to do that internal to our own body. So we use inside-out mapping. Well, they're starting to do that now with the next generation of headsets. So this one's, I predict, is going to be a big deal. It's a low price point. It's self-contained. It's simple. And so I think we're going to see a lot of interesting use cases developed for this headset. Because while the PC gives you a lot of power, if anybody's ever maintained and managed the Windows updates and then the VR updates and then the headset updates, it's a complicated, time-consuming challenge. The beauty of these self-contained, you don't have any of that. You just have the one device, you get it on the wireless, your Wi-Fi network, and you're good to go. So that's untethered VR, and there's a lot of progress being made in that area. The next type of VR, here's the earliest example of mobile VR, and I'm sure all of us had access to one of them as a kid. Here's your trivia question. How many years ago did this thing first come out? And I'll go ahead and we can't do a show of hands very easy. So I'll just tell you, it's 80 years old this year. 1939 is when the ViewMaster was launched. And so we've known about stereoscopic vision forever. I mean, just for a century, when they used to do the old hold two photos on a stick, and then you'd have a lenses you would look through. We've known about how to create the sensation of a 3D image with stereoscopic photos. We've known how to do that for many, many decades. And so when we look at the new technology, which is looking on our mobile phone, this is the Google Cardboard. And the way it works is you just take your smartphone that everybody has in their purse or their pocket. You just take your smartphone and stick it in this the Google Cardboard, or there's different versions of the same theme, but they're the only technology is really your smartphone, and then it has two lenses. So you see the two magnifying lenses you look through. That's all there is to this model. And again, this is known as the Google Cardboard option. There's all sorts of different models of this that aren't made of cardboard. I think Google did this just as sort of a marketing ploy to make a point. It's just cardboard and a couple of lenses, and it's like $3. We give them away. We have ones that are little pop-out latex rubber that you can hold, put your smartphone in and hold up to your face, and you're looking at a 3D image. And so that's mobile virtual reality. So those are some of the ways that we deliver VR experiences. Let's move on now to augmented reality. And with augmented reality, as the term implies, it's an overlay, and somehow it augments reality as opposed to totally replacing it. Here's one of the early, most popular versions of AR glasses. You probably recognize this as the Google Glass, and it was that little black dot that caused a big social backlash. That's a camera. And so people were weirded out by the fact that you were walking around with a camera on your face, and they were being recorded or not, they didn't know. And people would walk into a bathroom with one of these, and it would send everybody into a panic. And so it was a big social backlash, but the idea is very much alive and well. So here's what Google Glass, it was essentially, you were getting a heads-up display type of an overlay that was delivered through a little prism that you looked through. So here's what one looked like. Here's a guy using a navigation application on his bicycle. And so watch, he describes that experience.
You can see that it does take up a rather large chunk of your vision, but it is see-through. When you are focusing beyond the window, it doesn't come across as that much of a legitimate obstacle.
So that's one form of augmented reality. Here's another form. I don't know if you saw this, or maybe some of your students or kids played with it, but it was Pokemon Go, and it was a couple of years ago. It was this enormous technology craze that went on, but in this case, the reality was captured by the phone's camera, and then it overlaid the virtual bits, which were the Pokemon and the little rollerball. But you can see the purple jacket. That's just the person in the background. And so it augments your reality using the camera. And there's different modes of operation. There's many different forms of AR glasses, and we see those popping up in different use cases. I'll go through a couple of those in a moment. So that's augmented reality. It augments reality. Well, one that I used to be confused by was mixed reality, because it felt to me like it's the same thing. It's just augmenting reality. But there's one key difference with with mixed reality, the system has mapped and modeled your environment. And so that then allows the holograms to be anchored to the real world. And so when it maps your environment, it will literally come up with a 3D spatial map, this very high resolution, and it's contained in the headset. And so it then uses that to make the virtual bits either anchored to or interactive with the physical reality. And it has some very powerful effects. There are currently two main vendors. Microsoft 3 years ago, last month, released the HoloLens 1, and it looked like this, kind of space age. It would ratchet down on your forehead and your back, the back of your head, and you would ratchet it down with a knob in the back. And then the front, see, she's looking through these holographic lenses, and that's where the virtual bits are displayed. And so she looks through those lenses and she sees the virtual bits, and they're overlaid in the reality that you're looking at. And so that was about $3,000 3 years ago. Magic Leap came out last year, slightly lower price point. Theirs was a lighter headset, but they did that by offloading to a little puck that you hung on your belt that had the CPU and the battery and some of the heavy, hot stuff. They have you clip onto your belt or hang on a shoulder strap or whatever. But one thing about mixed reality, you see all these dots on the front of it. Well, those are all your sensors. They've got IR sensors, visual sensors, distance sensors, and all of that is what makes these complicated and expensive, because that's how it is mapping your spatial reality. And again, you're looking through the lenses. Here's Microsoft's Generation 2, what it looks like. And they've taken a very definite path now, 3 years later. This is due to come out in June. They raised the price, but you see they redesigned the ergonomics. So the heavy stuff, the battery, the processor and whatnot, they moved to the back of the head. They're wanting to change the center of gravity because they want this thing to be comfortable to where a worker can wear it for a large part of a workday and not get horribly fatigued. And so you see they changed also the little part that sets on your forehead. So now instead of a pinch point on your forehead where they're clamping it down, it's actually a little cup that sits on the crown of up there on the top of your forehead. And so between that and the back, it's supposedly much more comfortable. And the whole visor assembly, that whole thing flips up like the flip sunglasses. And so it allows you to flip it up out of your way when you're not using it. And Microsoft has now made the declaration, this is not a retail product. It's not a consumer product. It's not for games. This is purely for commercial and industrial uses. And so it's an interesting strategy that they just announced. The internet is going wild about this thing because it's got a much bigger field of view. It looks like it's ready for some primetime usage. So this is the state of the art in mixed reality right now. Here's the view from inside a Magic Leap. So you're looking through these, and it kind of feels like you're looking through some minimal sunglasses. It makes everything just a tiny bit darker, but it's looking through this LCD screen. That's where it creates the virtual photons that your eyes will interpret as real objects. So what does magic reality look like? This is kind of a whimsical little example, but I wanted to show it to you because it shows how precisely it maps your environment. And so watch when this little car climbs up the doorway. When it climbs over the door jamb, you'll watch its little shocks and the tires move around because it is aware that that doorway has some texture to it. So watch how it does that. See how it went over the door jamb, ran over the controller. And so it knew where the wall was, it knew where the floor was, it knew where the floor intersected the wall. And so when we say that it maps your environment, this is a whimsical example of what you can do with that. We'll get into some of the more serious examples in a moment. So hopefully now you have a sense of what is virtual, augmented, and mixed. What's the difference? How does it work? So let's now look at who cares, and I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit. The short answer is every single one of the large hardware makers and large software companies, every single one is making multi-billion-dollar bets in this, and they are bringing with them access to billions. But it's not just billions of dollars, billions of people. Facebook alone, 2.4 billion members. And so that's why this is a gigantic land rush right now. Everybody wants to claim the high ground in this next dimension of experiences and workplace and education. All the main consumer brands are using it. If any of you have an iPhone 10, check out the Warby Parker app. It lets you try on glasses at home using the facial scanning technology and the Apple 10 iPhone, and the internet's going crazy about it. It's so accurate in terms of what your face will actually look like with those glasses. It's a sign of things to come in terms of putting virtual objects in your space. There's a huge amount of venture capital that's dumping into it. I don't have the numbers yet for 2018, but you can follow the money and see the big players believe very aggressively that there's a transformation on its way. So last topic, what's in it for me? So some of the uses today, education and training of all types, that's hopefully a common thread that brings us together today. But imagine being able to deliver a very immersive, realistic environment that is too far, too hard to get to, too dangerous, too expensive, too big, too small. You can overcome any of those traditional barriers with a $200 or $400 headset and an internet connection. Games and entertainment, you've seen that. Here's a fun one. There's some fun, or maybe I should say unexpected, but it's powerful, life-changing implications. Pain relief, post-traumatic stress disorder, desensitizing people from phobias or fears. VR is being put to use in all of those very powerfully. Sales and marketing, as you've seen. Design, do walkthrough before you build it. Being able to do telepresence. And then I think one of the killer features is going to be community and social. This is more immersive than any digital communication vehicle we've ever experienced. And it's only just beginning to be explored. And then sadly, porn is always an early adopter of new tech, but there's a lot of powerful opportunities for how to use this that are being explored. One of my very favorites is the god of nature documentaries, David Attenborough. They brought him into Microsoft Studios, did a volumetric capture of him, giving a 3D, very high-res rendering of him, giving a tour of the British Natural History Museum. So for $4 on my Oculus Rift, I get a private tour of the man himself sitting literally across the table, telling me in his sonorous voice all about the wonders of some of the artifacts there that are rare, that are very expensive to get to, that you don't have access to. He'll offer you the chance to pick it up, to handle it. You can stretch it to about, I don't know, a meter long in size. You can rotate it, look at it. It's a very high resolution scan of that artifact. And I'm getting a private tour from the man himself. So for me, that's an inspiring example of the future of education, what it might look like. For creating certain experiences. You still need the great teachers to moderate, to consult, to advise, but you can create these experiences in a very compelling way that you just don't have another option to do so. You can cure phobias like fear of heights. You can integrate data from all the 3D sensors we already have, like CAT scans and MRIs. You can integrate that. You can even overlay it on the actual patient. So you're not just guessing, but you're using a data-informed, sensor-informed mapping of the real data on the patient. Here's one of the areas that is hottest right now for a lot of the uses, and that is industrial, whether it's walking someone through a complex assembly or repair process. And if you've got an augmented or a mixed reality description like this, it's almost impossible that you would make a mistake or you would forget something. Here's an interesting idea that Kellogg's and Accenture did. They wanted to study how advertising placement induced us to buy more empty calorie sugar snacks, which is maybe not a worthy goal, but it is interesting how with eye tracking, the advanced headsets actually track your eyes and they know where you're looking. And so they were able to explore different placements of signs and not just ask people questions. They literally just watched where their eyes went and watch how they described the experiment. And they're talking about these little signs that we always struggle to fight our way through with shopping carts. Well, they'll describe to you why they actually pay attention to that.
So in our first testing scenario, we placed the product on a high shelf and added promotional signage and captured shoppers' eye movements as they looked at virtual shelves. We can see their eyes were drawn to the sign and nearby products. This even helped visibility of other brands placed above the Pop-Tarts Bites.
In our second scenario, we placed the product and sign on a lower shelf. And sure enough, again we observed users' eyes were drawn to the sign and the nearby products. But more importantly, we saw that the placement increased attention to the other surrounding Pop-Tarts products.
So maybe the world doesn't need more Pop-Tarts consumption, but Kellogg's would like to encourage that. And they found an 18% increase in brand sales when they moved their sign down lower, which is totally non-intuitive. Normally you would think you'd want it up at eye level. And they found that with eye tracking, and so in some ways it's weaponizing our own body movements against us, but it gives a glimpse, no pun intended, but it gives a glimpse of the power of data that is available when we have this kind of awareness of what our users or what our learners are looking at. Here's one of the most impactful examples I've seen. Lockheed Martin released results on this study recently, and they showed spacecraft assembly, which is always guided by thousands and thousands of pages of assembly, very detailed assembly instructions. Check out some of the impact when they did this with mixed reality. They had 35 to 50% reduction in total technician time. This one blows me away. The time to interpret drawings and text instructions, they reduced it 90 to 99%. So it's just mind-boggling because, but in some ways you would expect it because it overlays it, the machine discerns the layout and overlays the appropriate instructions. And so the time to interpret plummets because you don't have to figure out which way to hold it and find the view. But then it reduced overall training time 85%. And so these are some of the really compelling examples that are coming from real life use. So let's shift over to education. I'll tell you about a couple of thought leaders in this space in Oklahoma. One is at the tiny little private school, Oral Roberts University in Tulsa. Mike Matthews is the leader there, and they are doing some very interesting work with AR and VR. They've got a whole global learning center that's all technology-based learning. Encourage you to go visit sometime. Michael's incredibly generous with sharing what they've done, how they've done it. That's his contact info. Another thought leader in this space is the OU Libraries. Matt Cook. I borrowed a couple of his slides to show what they're doing. He's got probably 20 different use cases where they have different opportunities for students and teachers. They're doing everything from furniture design. They will scan things in, and then they have 3D printers for people after they've modified or designed something. They can 3D output it and continue with their learning in the physical reality. But I would strongly encourage you to reach out to Matt for examples that he has discovered. He's taken people on virtual tours of a cave system. It's a virtual tour of a real experience, but he's giving access that time, money, distance would otherwise prevent. And it's exciting, some of the frontiers that they're exploring. But you can see offering access and analysis are some of the VR specific benefits. Here's a picture of Matt and his contact info. Again, come and visit. I'll extend the invitation on his behalf. OU Libraries is doing some really groundbreaking stuff, getting recognized around the globe. So the last thing I will mention as a quick and easy way that you could get started with this is 360 video. So I told you that you can do this kind of display, immersive display off of your smartphone. All you need is a $3 Google Cardboard, or you don't even need that. If you just want to have a 360 video, you can hold your phone, and the accelerometers let you move it. It can tell where you're moving it within a 360 video. YouTube and Vimeo already have the ability. You can upload your own 360 video, and anybody can view it for free on their smartphones. And so it makes it a very easy, cheap way to do it. You just need a 360 video camera. The first one we bought was a little $600 one from the GoPro. It's just two cameras mounted back to back, but then you can go up the several $1,000s for the really nice ones. But it's very easy for you to get started, to make an immersive experience, to try it out for free, and then you deliver it for free on YouTube or Vimeo or the number of other apps out there. So these are a couple of, Bailenson I really like as an author, researcher. He's a researcher in VR for some 20 years, Stanford, and he's pioneered a lot of work, but he's very thoughtful about the power and the responsibility for this new medium. So let me stop there, 10 minutes left, and see if there's any questions or if anybody's still awake.
All right, perfect. If anybody has any questions, you should see at the bottom of your screen a Q&A box. Go ahead and type those questions there, and we will go through those. excuse me. Ken, are you aware of any organizations that are doing grants or any type of funding for people that want to get into the space that you've been talking about?
Yes, and that's one I didn't include the slide. I should have. Let me go pull it up real quickly from Matt's presentation. I'll find it here real quick and show some of the grant ideas. This is such a hot topic. There are a lot of people that are interested in this. There's a lot of research dollars available for it. And so if you have interest in it and you want to try to bring it to your domain, I think there's some great opportunities for you to do that. Here we go. Sorry, taking a moment here to track it down. These are some of the grants that that Matt Cook has won, and but it'll at least give you some examples of some of the institutions. I think it's one you just got to get out there and start digging. The short answer is absolutely. NSF is going to sponsor this kind of stuff. The big frontier right now is figuring out how do we use VR technology to enhance learning and measure the improvements. It is so new in a lot of domains. It's wide open, and there's a lot of interest. So if you can put something together and then explore the impact, I think you will have something that people will be clamoring for you to present to. They'll want to help fund it. They will want to publish it. So that's one of the exciting things about this space is it is literally a frontier. So go stake out a plot and let's get Oklahoma on the map.
Okay, great. Yeah, absolutely. That grant funding is always helpful whenever it comes to adoption of tech like this. We do have a few questions. David Files asks, may we have your presentation slides? David, we'll make the live recording available, and Ken, if you would like to make the slide deck available, we can do that too.
Yep. Yeah. I'll gather up a care package and get it to Kyle so he can, or Bucky, so they can post it.
Okay. Dr. Blanky wants to know if can you create an effective experience without the goggles? Does it lose effectiveness if you don't have that piece?
The short answer is yes, absolutely. But I guess the part that I want to encourage is that people realize there's a whole spectrum. I'm going to turn off the share here. So there's a whole spectrum that ranges from using your smartphone, and you're just using it like a viewer, or your mobile, your tablet or whatever. And so you can move it around in a 360 experience. And it's sort of like looking through a porthole at an immersive environment. And so not very immersive, but it does let you experience a 3D environment. The next up on the spectrum, the next better, is to get one of the cardboard, either one of those headsets with it's got a strap, and you're actually wearing your smartphone on your face, looking through the goggles. That's a big step up in immersiveness because it will block out your vision, your peripheral vision. And it also is stereoscopic. So you're looking at it like this. And You're looking through, your phone will have two little round stereoscopic images. And so when you look at it, it makes it feel more compelling. The next step from that is the low-end VR headsets like the Oculus Go. That's $200. That's only 3 degrees of freedom. So that means it knows which way I'm tilting my head, but it doesn't know anything else in terms of the other 3 degrees of freedom of if I'm moving. So the Oculus Go is a step up. It's $200 versus free, basically. And then the step up above that is the tethered headsets. There's about to be that interim step, which is the Oculus's big sister, the Go's big sister, called the Oculus Quest. And the Quest is that $400 self-contained 6 degrees of freedom. So that's going to be even better. And then the best is still going to be the tethered headset with beacons. And it's going to get displaced, but that's still the best. And so you can make one experience and you can deliver it across all of those. But some of the high-end experiences, you can only experience it on a Rift or a HTC Vive or a PlayStation set of 3D goggles.
Okay, so we have a couple more questions. We probably have time to answer these. Is the GoPro 360 photography solution a delivered product / kit, or would I be able to add a second GoPro to one I already have?
Oh, that's a great question. The one that is packaged as a solution is a prepackaged kit, and I would say that I don't know if you could take 2 GoPros, because you need something that does at least 180. If you've only got 2 GoPros, it has to be at least more than 180, or you'll have gaps at the fringes. But it's an interesting question, because you have to have software that stitches the 2 different views together, and that's what creates the 360 video, the single video. And so that's a great question. I don't have a definitive answer, but I do know that the one that they package, it's just 2 GoPro cameras that they stitch into the same body. And the contact with OU Libraries is, let me pull his contact info up again. It's Matt Cook. And Matt's just a prince of a guy. Let me share that again. It's basically MN Cook at ou.edu. So there his contact info is again. All right.
Okay, great. Well, Ken, thank you so much for your presentation today. This is fascinating stuff. I just think it's so interesting to see how much, the way learning is delivered is likely to change just within the next few years. So thank you again for a fascinating presentation. For everyone that joined us today, I would like to invite you to join us again throughout the summit. Tomorrow we are going to be having an OER presentation, OpenStax and Science. This is a great presentation, not only for faculty members in science, but anyone who's at a smaller institution. That's sometimes something that we get from our smaller schools is we don't want college is going to talk about their experience and what they've done at a smaller school to implement OER. So you can see the schedule of our live presentations during the next 2 weeks on the website, onlineexcellence.onenet.net, as well as register there. So once again, thank you, Ken, for an incredible presentation, and we will get this live, the recording of the live presentation up on the website just as soon as we get it.
Great. Thanks all.
All right, thanks everyone.